You being overweight is actually you being less of a man, because we know your test levels are dwindling. The more fat you have, even the testosterone you build is getting converted into estrogen. Your libido goes down, your reflexes slow down, movement slows down.
When you become 18, 19, 20 stones, you are living a life controlled by your nafs. You are giving in to every desire to eat. And we love to make excuses. Everybody comes, how do you know they might have a disease? There is no disease where you can sit down and not eat and just gain 10 stones.
People that design food, or neuroscientists, behavioral psychologists, they know this combination of salt and fat will elicit the most addictive behaviors. Therefore they buy more, they consume more.
We think about generational wealth. What about generational health? It could be you or me. It could be that one person that you create this healthy lifestyle, then your children follow suit, then their children follow suit. It could be that one person who changes the trajectory of health for generations to come.
Why do you think we're getting there in the first place? Why do you think we're storing so much fat? Like, what's in our diet, what's in our lifestyle that's making us laughing stock in a way?
Referring back to that study, it said,
hi guys, welcome back to Masculine Mastery, the show where we talk about things that matter to men. With me today, from across the peaks, it's Mr. Adam Khan, aka Fit to Life Dad Mastery.
Fit Dad Life Mastery.
Fit Dad Life Mastery. Got the intro wrong.
Let's just go actualized Muslim man.
Actualized Muslim, there you go. Adam, welcome to the show.
Nice to be here, finally.
Nice to hear you. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
It's been a while, we've been speaking for a few months.
Yes.
And good to finally have you in person. And amongst all the controversy over the New Year's and the bank holiday and Christmas period and various Facebook, LinkedIn posts, it's good to meet you in person. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Not the villain you are online, but nice, affable Mancunian, mashallah. How are things?
Alhamdulillah, good.
So, fit dad life mastery. Okay, good. Fit dad, that makes sense. Because the opposite of a fit dad is a dad bod. We talked about this off air. Your testosterone plateauing in your 40s, where most people become fathers. Obviously, alhamdulillah, you became father in your 20s. Like me, we were relatively early dads, but most people become fathers in their late 30s, early 40s, which then coincides with natural andropause anyway, natural kind of test levels plateauing and then decreasing. And then you become a dad, which means increased estrogen anyway. We know when you become a dad, your estrogen levels increase because you're spending a lot of time around lactating, your wife, etc. So that's when the dad bod comes on. So in your experience, was that the reason why you chose that name? Dad bod, or was there something else?
I felt that Muslim dads need to be good role models. That's the main reason, because the reason, not the name, more so why I got into this is because I discovered that South Asian men are 6 times more likely to suffer from heart disease, diabetes and strokes. This was from a study in 2011. And because the obesogenic environment has become progressively worse, more kebab shops, more sedentary behavior, more feminization, if you will, as well, of society, right? So all of this has increased the likelihood of men gaining weight and heart disease and all the rest of it. I had a battle with my weight as well for 10 years. I couldn't really lose weight and keep it off, following all of the traditional means of training really hard, cardio, dieting, all that stuff. But then in 2012, I managed to actually finally lose weight and keep it off. With that came a new wife and so many things. Like when I felt confident in myself, first time in my life I had almost a cover model physique, and the level of confidence it gave me, the discipline it taught me, the routines, the habits, and as that was the catalyst for this massive transformation in my life, which we can get to later on. And I thought, do you know what? I need to share this with the rest of the world. I know how tough it was being a fat dad, and I'm sure a lot of other people are struggling with that, and I've got a solution. I want to feel like I want to share it. I want to reduce the likelihood of illness and disease in our community. I want to change the health status of Muslim men. And you might ask, okay, so why Muslim men? Because even before I started with the working with the Muslim community, I worked with other coaches, and they were fantastic coaches, but they just didn't understand our culture. And when I was working for them, I saw that Muslim men would go to them, and they're premium services, and they just weren't being served in the manner that they needed to be served. And I just felt, you know what, I can do such a 10 times better job than these guys. So the demand was there. And like I said, fantastic coaches, but they just don't understand our culture.
Exactly.
And how to work around that. So I thought, okay, here, I can I can do something.
Yeah, no, it makes sense because, like you say, when I was at university, and we mentioned Johnny and Yusuf off air, you know, Yusuf's a doctor, Johnny went to my university, and kind of mid 2000s, you want to get a shredded physique, six-pack, you got to go online, you know, sixpacknow.com and bodybuilding forums, etc. But nothing understood Muslims. There was no Muslim natural bodybuilders, right? And there was no Muslim weight loss coach. Weight loss was a generic kind of coaching program, and it didn't cater to Muslims. Our schedules of Fajr, Salah, Isha, our dietary requirements didn't cater to Ramadan as well. So the nuance was lost, and we were in fact the people that needed it the most. It's like the whole COVID pandemic. The people that needed treatment the most were those which was less likely to seek it. It's the same as obesity. The people that need the more treatment and more of the coaching and counseling were people less likely to get it, and this has been our community. So I can certainly see the demand. So why do you think our people, because I know medically speaking, like our phenotypes, you know, we store fat around the visceral areas, the gut, around the abdomen, where all the organs are in the abdomen, right? Your liver, your spleen, your kidneys, all in the abdomen. We store visceral fat, adiposity around here, not in our chest and not in our legs, like our Caucasian counterparts do. So this increases the risk of diabetes by 2.5%. So you see the typical Asian dad bod physique. It's almost like a pear. It's you know, they're very gynocentric, with lots of hips and fat around the abdomen, whereas similar BMI Caucasian or African client will have much more even distribution of fat, right? On their face as well, they'll have it more on their shoulders. We don't, we'll have very little on the shoulders. You'll have skinny toothpick arms, but huge abdomen, huge hips, which is very unusual for a guy. And this increases the risk of diabetes massively. But why do you think we're getting there in the first place? Why do you think we're storing so much fat? Like, what's in our diet, what's in our lifestyle that's making us, you know, a laughing stock in a way?
Again, referring back to that study, said we are 6 times more likely to suffer from heart disease, diabetes and strokes in our 30s. And I must kind of sidetrack here. It's getting younger. It's getting younger. That's the biggest worry, is that more and more younger people are getting diabetes
in their 20s, right? It's type 2, by the way.
I'm hearing from a lot of my clients are doctors, and I hear from them that they are now seeing patients in their clinics at 18 and they're diabetic. This was unheard of 10 years ago. So why is it happening? I mean, like I said, the society, as you know, the environment is becoming progressively worse. More fast food, more sedentary behavior, more stress.
But why us? Or why this community?
But our community, largely our community, because of the culture, because of our culture of eating, because of our mindsets and our culture around being overweight. Being overweight is almost seen as celebrated.
So what do they say in Urdu? I don't know the word no. Urdu is not very good, but there's a word for it, isn't there? He's healthy. Like, this guy's healthy. But he's not. He's actually obese.
So I've got a client, and most listeners and viewers might even know Dr. Sheikh Suhail Hanif, the CEO of the National Zakah Foundation. So he was my client at one point, and he went to Pakistan, and over there he said to me, "Look, I'm struggling with the mindset here, because over here everyone's big, and they're telling me to be big. Like
it's a sign of wealth.
They're encouraging me, like, don't you eat enough?" I got this from another client who's also very well known, but I'm not going to mention his name because a lot of people know him. He said to me he was struggling with this mindset that to stop eating at 80% fullness, or because one of the things I teach is that you should stop eating before you're stuffed. So like 80% fullness, and even though the hadith says 1/3, most people can't stick to 1/3. So let's be a bit more lenient. Let's go to 80% fullness, right? So we encourage people to stop at 80% fullness, and he goes, "Look, every time I go to do that, I feel like I'm failing as a man." You know, like he said, like, because I feel like as a man I need to eat like a man. So I said, "Okay, what does eat like a man mean to you?" He goes, like, eat, isn't it? Just eat. And I thought, well, do you know what? Wow, like,
it's a mindset thing.
It's a mindset, but I suffered from it, and to the point where about 3 months ago, I was joking to my wife and I said, you know, I eat like a man, or I need to eat. And I stopped. I thought, damn, I'm thinking of overeating, and being gluttonous
Yes.
as eating like a man.
Yeah, yeah.
Then I thought to myself, no, actually, that's not eating. Being overweight and obese, and that's not manly, that's not masculine. Because in our culture, that's masculine.
Yeah, of course it is,
Right? And so I stopped myself, look, having heart disease, diabetes, being a poor role model to my kids, and just being a poor role model all round. And again, from Islamic perspective, like, it completely clashes. It contradicts everything that I believe and stand for. So we need to completely flip the script.
You mentioned something there, an imam and Islamic obligation to be role models, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you are the best nation brought for أخرجت للناس. You are the كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس. You are the best nation brought forward for mankind. And we need to be role models. Like, you've got we'll go into it in a second.
And it goes on to say, balanced nation.
Yeah. Ummat al-Wasata, exactly, balanced nation. And this applies to many things, by the way. Our dealings, our calories, right? Like balance. Don't over consume and don't underspend. The thing about the hadith of Rasulullah, he says, eat 1/3. People don't understand. He said, if you are to go beyond a few muscles, he said initially, eat a few muscles. Like, we have a few, just a few muscles. If you are to go beyond that, then go to 1/3. And we're using 1/3 as a minimum. No, he said, if you are to go beyond a few muscles, go to 1/3. And you're getting people who can't even do 80%. It's really, really a mindset thing. And you might have seen this whole movement now with Oprah Winfrey and Sharon Osbourne about the Ozempic injections, etc. Because it is mindset. We are in such an obesogenic environment where it's hard. It actually is hard to be. It's actually hard to be in shape because you're like when I'm in a cut and I want to get to below 10% body fat, get chiseled, get abs. Honestly, my mum says you're not eating well. You look ill. Have you got COVID? No, I'm okay. I'm in the best shape of my life. Are you unwell? We need to get this mindset away. And then you go and you got a big belly. Oh, he's healthy actually. He's well fed. He's happy at home. And one of the things they ask you is your wife not cooking for you. If you're just normal, if you're normal, like good BMI, but if you've got a big belly, he's a happy man. He's got a happy life. He's got a happy wife. He's got a happy life because he's got a big belly. This cultural change needs to happen because we're getting people into early graves, and we're doing it by spinning this narrative.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so what message do you have then for the imams who are overweight? I know you talk a lot on LinkedIn about this, because imams are not on LinkedIn, they don't really follow. So what message do you have? Because inshallah this will go out to people who are in our community. The overweight imams who are leading at the minbar and they're just overweight, they're going against Islamic principles firstly, but what role models are they giving for the young children who are seeing them?
I have a very strong message actually. So I have a presentation that's about an hour and a half long, where it's probably the most detailed presentation you will come across that brings all of the evidences I found from the Quran, the Hadith, from the Sahaba, and from the pious predecessors, and I put it all together with rational explanations and various other things to make a very strong case that how it's so completely. After reading that, I wouldn't be surprised if people think it's haram to have a big belly. It's that much evidence. I would say the evidence that I've gathered there is stronger than growing a beard. Again, alhamdulillah, I was fortunate enough to study in an Islamic boarding school when I was younger, so I've got some study behind me. And the only proof that you have around beards, and we see beards as a massive thing. In the culture that I grew up in, it was a massive thing that you had to have a beard. If you shaved or clean it, you're a fasiq, even your evidence in court, right? And then it has to be a fist length. But where's the evidence for it? The evidence comes from a few ahadith where Prophet said, the Zoroastrians, they grow their tash and thing, and then he said just let it grow. So there's I think six or so ahadith, right? There's no evidence in the Quran. In the Quran, Allah says, "Ataakum ar-rasulu fakhudhu wa ma nahakum anhu fantahu." That take what the Prophet gives you and abstain from what he forbids you. And based on that, they say, look, the hadith, the Prophet's telling you to do something. But again, those verses were actually referring to the spoils of war. There's no verse in the Quran that talks about beards. However, There are several verses in the Quran that talk about how we should eat. Allah says, "Kulu mimma fil ardi halalan tayyiban." Eat and drink halal and tayyib, wholesome foods. So halal food and wholesome food.
Yes.
So that's one of the principles that we teach. You predominantly eat wholesome, natural foods,
Yes.
single ingredient foods. If it's protein, it's protein. If it's chicken, it's chicken. If it's beef, it's beef. If it's carbohydrates, vegetables, vegetables. It's not this.
It's not ultra processed.
Yeah, it's not ultra processed, right? So that's one verse. Then there's another verse where Allah says, "Kulu washrabu wa la tusrifu." Eat and drink, don't go to excess. Now I'm going to throw a caveat in here. I got called out by Sheikh Yasir Qadi because I used this verse and I said it's Allah said not to eat excess, and he says no. Historically, that verse was never understood like that because israf is extravagance.
Yes.
Right. So I said, look, but when you eat, excessively eating, isn't that a form of extravagance? He said, yeah, okay. I said, isn't the Quran timeless? He said, yeah. I said, so some verses that are restricted and other verses that are open to interpretation
over time,
yeah. And based on circumstances, situations, things like that, you can interpret these verses differently. I said, historically, these verses were probably never interpreted that way because nobody was obese. Everybody was a healthy body weight, so it didn't make any sense to interpret these verses in that manner. Now we are living in a world where obesity is killing hundreds of thousands of people a year, right? And our community is one of the hardest hit. So it makes sense to interpret these verses in this manner, right? He conceded. He said, "You're actually right. You're actually right." So, but then there's another verse. "Kulu min at-tayyibat ma razaqnakum wa la tatghaw fi." Eat of the wholesome foods that we provided you, but don't overindulge or go to excess in it. And I use this verse to explain to my clients that even healthy foods you can overeat.
Of course you can. You can die of. We had it actually recently. Too much water, and a lady died. She had cocaine. She got thirsty, started drinking. Sodium levels dropped. Had a coma, died. So water, something which is pure and. But you can, anything, excess amount of dates or honey or black seed oil, whatever you think is tayyib and good for you.
Yeah,
mentioned in the Quran,
so Allah is even restricting that. But here's another thing, and this is a miracle of the Quran. And if non-Muslims see this, maybe hopefully they'll look at the Quran in more depth. So the Quran is a solution. Islam is a solution to modern day problems. And Islam is a solution to all of the ailments and problems of the world. So I think it's imperative on scholars and religious leaders to see how can we apply the Quran to solve modern world problems.
Yes.
And by doing so, we will attract more people into the fold of Islam.
Yeah, absolutely. See Islam as a solution, a system rather than a religion. Islam is not a religion which is confined to Saturday, Sunday or Friday. It is a holistic system which every single day of your life you're actively engaging in. I always see Islam as a way to live life. It's actually a, let's say, on your phone you can have themes. Islam is a theme to live your life by.
So you asked me again, what's the message? So again, we don't have 2 hours to go through the entire presentation, so I've given a few verses of the Quran. But do watch my presentation. Anybody who's listening, watching, find me on Facebook, Adam Khan. The presentation, the shorter version of the presentation, which is about 45 minutes, it's in my Facebook group. It's free, anyone can access it. Any males, it's for Muslim males, the group. But I'm going to do another presentation where I've added more layers and more detail to it, and that'll end up probably being an hour and a half
5 hours.
Yeah. But now, the one message that I often say to scholars is this: look, the only time we become morbidly obese, look, we can all have a bit of a belly, right? It's hard to maintain a really slim figure. But when you become 18 stones, 19 stones, 20 stones, that means you are essentially living a life controlled by your nafs.
Yes, you are.
Because you are giving in to every desire to eat, every whim, every desire to eat, because it's impossible. And we love to make excuses. And this is another thing, on social media, when we get this, everybody comes like, astaghfirullah, how do you know they might have a disease or they might have illness, and you're a doctor yourself. There is no disease where you can sit down and not eat and just gain 10 stones. Right? There's no disease that I think, and then they say, it's genetics again.
Genetics is the worst argument ever. Genetics is such a, they say, a victim mentality. Victim mentality. like on Yawm al-Qiyamah, people will say, Allah, blame shaitan. You say, no, blame them. So blaming,
blame leaders, blame here.
Exactly, blaming. No. Blame yourself. Accountability, right? Hisab, Yawm al-Hisab. What is Qiyamah? Yawm al-Qiyamah, Yawm al-Hisab.
فَلَا تَلُومُونِي. It says, don't blame me.
Exactly. And it's all about outsourcing blame. No. Apportion blame to yourself. You're the one that picked up that thing and put it in your mouth. You're the one that swiped the credit card. So have some accountability. And this thing about being morbidly obese, not only does it lack self-awareness, like you have no self-respect in a way. Self-awareness as in that you're getting bigger and bigger and you're not doing anything about it. That's one thing. The second thing is you're functioning slower in every single way. Your libido goes down. Why? Because your testosterone levels drop. Because you're carrying more fat. You're aromatizing, estrogen increases. So you actually
feel tired, you feel lethargic.
You're becoming more of a
brain fog.
That's the thing. So your cerebral function slows down. Your reflexes slow down. Your movement slows down. Everything about you slows down. You being overweight is actually you being less of a man. Because we know your test levels are dwindling. Because the more fat you have, even the testosterone you build is getting converted into estrogen through aromatization. The process of aromatization, where aromatase is in your fat, in your adipose tissue, the one that you're holding in your moobs and your hips and down below, that's converting the test into estrogen. You're becoming more of a female by getting bigger. So actually, to become a man, like you said earlier, lower your body fat percentage.
And I think historically, look, there's always been, again, now we're in a world where we don't even know what a man or a woman is. It's all confusion. We're arguing over genders and stuff. But historically, there is a masculine ideal. Shape. There's a shape, a form. There's a masculine
Leonardo
form.
did it in the Vitruvian Man. He did the perfect proportions. And both. I went to Macedonia a few months ago, and perfectly chiseled men. Like this was the norm. And even they said Rasulullah had visible abs. They said when he leaned, he got ridges. Obviously, they didn't call it a six-pack because that's a recent term. But they had visible abs. They didn't have a protruding belly. And even Umar, the second Caliph of Islam, he says,
Prophet said he had broad shoulders. He said he had a chest that protruded past his belly.
Exactly. So he didn't have a belly, and he was fit in his 50s because carrying 20 kilograms of armor. Very fit man. And nowadays we've got the worst physique, by the way, the skinny fat pandemic. Skinny fat is the worst pandemic because
you neither strong nor
no, exactly, because and that's the one which is highest in estrogen. It's the one which is highest in cortisol, and it's the one which has the most brain fog because your testosterone is being converted into estrogen. It's being broken down by aromatization, by the way. This is a medical phenomenon. This is not just some bro science. This is a medical phenomenon. So the more fat you hold, the more feminine you're going to be. Because women have body fat percentage of 15-20% as a minimum. Men can go down to 2 or 3%, 4%, right? Women can't ever get to that level. So, and a healthy woman is at 25% body fat. Healthy man is below 12%. So we're not the same. A man shouldn't have more than 20% body fat. Women shouldn't have less than 10%. So we have to have that polarity. Men and women have to be different. But now you got, like these Imams, you can't actually be 20 strong without having 50% body fat or whatever. They're ridiculously high.
I mean, I'm going to touch on 2 points here. You mentioned genetics, but again, I have another video, guys, if you're watching, like another half an hour, 45-minute video on genetics, because people need to understand what we mean by, yes, genetics plays a role in your physique, absolutely. But what do we mean by that? It's people assume that genetics means that I don't do anything and I just gain weight. It doesn't mean that, right? The only people who don't have any control, it's about 1 or 3%. They have homozygous genes, and they come with other forms of retardation. They'll have maybe Down syndrome, or they'll have loss of function, and it's those that's the 1 to 3%. The rest of the people, when it talks about genetics, it means yes, it's a bit more harder in terms of I'm a genetically a fatty, straight up. You know why? I have high appetite. So I have a big appetite. So people who are genetically predisposed to gaining weight, they tend to have higher reward centers, meaning they get sometimes they might identify themselves as foodies. They get a much more enjoyment and pleasure from food. Number one. They have bigger appetites. and they tend to have higher ghrelin as well.
Yeah.
So they feel more hungry more often.
Yes, yeah,
They feel more hungry more often, then their appetites are bigger, and they tend to get a lot of reward from food. And an easy way to identify if you do have that genetic is, if you go training, when you come back, do you feel like treating yourself to food?
Yeah, I usually do, yeah.
Yeah, if normally people who tend to have genetics predisposed to gaining weight, they tend to reward themselves
After,
with food.
after
A
training.
lot of time, and not just with training. They tend to often reward themselves with food, because somebody who's genetically gifted, I would say, who doesn't have this issue with obesity, they don't tend to get a lot of pleasure from food. They see food as almost as a chore.
Yeah, functional.
Yeah.
They eat enough to survive,
Yeah,
and
they don't-
kind of, Whereas I get it, a lot of people have, the ones that are more predisposed to obesity anyway, they have the genetic genotype for obesity, they get immense pleasure.
Yeah,
like
from food, yeah.
Food is pleasurable. It's like
Yes,
sex.
very,
It's just
yeah.
pleasurable for them, and they do it to soothe their pain, and that's why they overeat.
And it becomes a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
Because you get, so now, and whenever I'm dealing with any life problems, stress, anxiety, argument with the wife, I'll turn to food, right? And then now I've trained myself that anytime I have an issue, I'm going to soothe myself. And this is the thing that women are, I think, are self-aware.
Yes.
Women can identify these patterns. Men can't. Because I asked the question once, I said, do men emotionally eat? No one responded. And most men think they don't, but they do. It's a bigger problem in men as it is in women. Stress eating, eating for everything. Eating when they're sad, eating when they're stressed, eating when they're happy. So it becomes a vicious cycle. Now the only way I know how to soothe myself is through food.
No, that's a good point, because there was a meme on Instagram a few months ago, and it's about a guy who's overweight, American guy, and he's like, he said, the reason why I'm overweight, if I have a good day at work, I treat myself. If I have a bad day at work, I go out and eat because I'm sad. So he said, I'm always eating out. It's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Emotional eating, you've got to detach emotions from eating. Food is functional. Food is there for your survival, for you to thrive, for you to gain muscle, for you to be strong, healthy bones, healthy skin, etc. Food shouldn't be, once in a while you treat yourself, but food majority should be functional, right?
Functional, yeah.
Like, if you look at the Rasul, he had the lamb shoulder once in a while, once every 3 months perhaps, It was a treat once in a while. Now we're having, especially in our culture, by the way, in our culture, like
food should be seen as fuel.
Food, exactly, it's food. And in our culture, we're having tea with 2 or 3 spoons of sugar in. And on top of that, you must have halwa and all these things. I don't know, these. You must have it. You don't have to have dessert. If you're gonna have dessert, have a bit of some. It's sunnah, by the way, to have something sweet. But they use the sunnah in such an extreme way. Well, yes, Rasul used to have sweets with. but he didn't have excessive food. And that sweet is a plate of halwa. And this is why when you go to mosque on a Thursday, you go to the masjid, the langar and all these things. You go to some of the Sufi masjids, and it's all like ghee-based rice and curries and a sweet rice. Of course you're going to be obese. If I had that for a week, I'd be obese. And they're having it daily.
And then the issue with, again, in terms of rewarding yourself for food, again, processed foods, it alters your brain. We know that you start creating new neural pathways that become dependent on this food. Okay, I guess this can lead into this term food addiction. See, I'm not a fan of this term food addiction, because I understand that people use it to show that we understand someone's struggle, but I think it's disempowering. I worked in the National Probation Service, and I used to help people who were addicted to drugs and alcohol. And I've seen what real addiction can do to people. And people addicted to drugs and alcohol, like, when you say food addict, you're downplaying real addiction. Or people who get physical withdrawal symptoms from being addicted to a substance. Yes, you might have some minor symptoms when you cut out sugars and this and that, but it's not. That's more food dependency. Not food addiction. And if you say you're addicted, give a dog a name and it becomes yours. Right? If you believe you're a food addict, that's not empowering, and that's not going to help you find a solution. That's going to actually, I'm a food addict, so this is just who I am.
It's a condition, it's a disease,
You're tying that to your identity. So, if you again, there's a lot of talk in the media about food addiction. From what I understand, again, it's a media sensationalism. It's not real addiction. Yes, you're food dependent, but again, that comes down to habits, behaviors, and stuff like that, and it can be tough And especially if you've wired yourself, because you're so hardwired to, food gives you pleasure, but processed foods give you a massive dopamine hit. But again, there's a study that says it's like cocaine. Again, I'm a very evidence-based guy, right? And yes, it stimulates the same reward centers as cocaine, not to the extent that cocaine does, right? It's like, I've never had cocaine, but you know, I've seen people have cocaine, like when I used to work in a particular place, right? So I've not seen them, sorry. I know that I could tell, right? Or they've said that, you know, they're going out and they said, "Oh, have you had a line?" I just had a line or something. So I know, and I've seen, and if you ask them, would you compare your cupcake to cocaine?
If cocaine's a different level,
No, the cupcake does not. It's not the same. So again, I think it's prudent to move away from these terms. It's my genetics, I'm a food addict. You know, they're disempowering.
Exactly, and you're giving power to the wrong things. You're giving power to, essentially, like you say, you know, if you keep calling someone a thief, you'll become a thief. It's just like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you say it's an addiction, you see it like alcohol addiction.
I can't do anything. I'm helpless.
You essentially become, it's called learned helplessness.
Yes.
You know, it's a learned helplessness. You essentially take on that label, you self-fulfill that label, it becomes a prophecy that fulfills, and you end up essentially being the villain in your own story, as opposed to being a victor. I always say victim versus victor. Only a small difference in letters, but you can say I'm an addict and become a victim. Or you can say I'm a victor. Same as genetics. Genetics is I'm a victim. My mom had bad genes, my dad had bad genes, you know, blah, 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 three generations ago. But why can't you be the person that changes that genetic path? If it is bad, why can't you be the person that takes a bit of responsibility? The other thing I wanted to talk about is diabetes in young people. So 18, 19 years old, they're getting diabetes. And do you think that's from the parents?
Yes. I mean, of course, we're genetically predisposed. And again, coming back to genetics, and you watch my whole video on genetics, right? So to the viewers and listeners, I mean, you probably know all this anyway. Genetics loads the gun. It's our lifestyle choices that pull the trigger. And when I was learning all of this nutrition, behavior change stuff, we looked at studies of twins. And they looked at twins where same identical twins, they put into two different environments. And guess what? One gains weight and the other doesn't. You can take a person who's predisposed to being massively overweight. You know, he's got the worst kind of genetics in terms of, i.e., his reward centers and you know, how his hunger levels, all that stuff. And you can put him in an environment that's physically fit. You can put him in the mountains where you have to chop wood, right? You're only eating, you know, raw organic foods and stuff, and you're chopping wood for you know, for a living and stuff. And guess what? He would be fit. He would be healthy, and without him even trying. You take the guy who's supposed to be genetically slim, you put him in an environment where overabundance of processed foods, and stressful environment, sedentary behaviors, and he's forced into that situation, he'll gain weight. And there's numerous studies that have been done on this. So your genetics is not your destiny. Right? It's, yes, certain paths are made easier for others and smooth, but we all have challenges in life, right? You know, no one is, or very few people are at birth dealt with a perfect hand. Right? Everyone's going to have a hand where, you know, a couple of cards are not perfect. And
now,
it's how you play them.
Exactly. Start playing. I'll always say this: it's never about the cards you were dealt. It's about the hand you play in life. And even going back to ultra processed foods. This is very, very common. It's a very recent phenomenon, by the way. This wasn't around 50 years ago. You know, literally since the 1970s, ultra-processed, high fructose corn syrup, all that kind of stuff. You know, I've got kids, you've got kids. You know, people that design foods are, you know, neuroscientists, behavioral psychologists. They know this combination of salt and fat will elicit the most addictive behaviors. This coloring, this MSG, this preservative will elicit this MRI response, will elicit this dopamine response, will elicit this consumer behavior. Therefore, they buy more, they consume more.
The texture, the way it feels in your everything.
Exactly.
You know, like Doritos, the way it crunches.
Pringles and all these things, and Snickers. All these, they're designed for mass consumption. They are designed for addiction. They are designed for profit, right?
Yeah,
essentially.
100%.
It's capitalism, isn't it?
Yeah. Because the more you eat of that, the more money they make.
Exactly. Yeah. And you mentioned something there earlier, stress and sleep. Yeah. Well, stress particularly. Stress response is so important because what is stress? So stress is cortisol. Okay. Cortisol is a glucocorticoid. Okay. It's it's essentially a hormone, right? Cortisol is a hormone. It's a form of glucocorticoids. Gluco means glucose, sugar. So when you have too much cortisol, your body thinks you're diabetic, so you get pre-diabetes. You've heard of Cushing syndrome. A lot of bodybuilders get it because they're taking steroids, right? Steroids again is a form of glucocorticoids. So your body thinks you've got too much sugar from having too much cortisol. You could be not eating, and a lot of people who are stressed don't eat, by the way. They either stress eat, but some of them don't eat at all. But your body still thinks you're eating because you've got so much cortisol. So your body is becoming skinny fat. You're becoming skinny because you've got no muscle. You're not having the protein.
Muscle wastage, yeah.
Muscle wastage. But you've got such high cortisol levels that your body thinks you're becoming diabetic. So stress control is one of the most important things to having a good physique and maintaining a good kind of alignment in your life, spiritual alignment, because you can't be spiritually fit if you're not physically fit, by the way. I always speak about this. The Imam who's having milkshakes every day, do you think he's really fit? He's not, he might be praying and leading Salah, but he's polluting his body with sugars, etc. And then some people commented on this, by the way, saying, don't, on my TikTok, saying don't talk about Imams. They're much more learned than you. I'm speaking about it from a medical point of view. If they're poisoning their bodies with sugars and fructose corn syrup, your heart is a part of your body. You're polluting the heart as well. You're polluting your ruh, your nafs.
I mean, again, it's not about personality. It's about your line of argument. Yeah. Is your argument correct? If your argument's correct, right, whether it's come from a jahil or it's coming from a very learned person, if the case you make
is robust,
it's okay. But coming back to men want to be leaders. If you want to be a leader, lead the way. So sometimes the men will say to me, I'm overweight because my wife doesn't cook healthy for me. It's like, you have to take ownership and responsibility for your own health, right? And if you are a leader, you have to lead her and lead the kids. You have to lead by example for your kids. And I said, our kids do what we do, not what we say, right? You can't sit there expecting your wife to cook your meal and show you the perfect healthy lifestyle for you to follow. Then you're a follower now, you're not a leader.
Yes.
Right? So you have to actually lead the way, and then they should follow your example, not the other way around.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And especially for children, right? Like now 18, they become diabetic. In their 20s, they become diabetic. Again, Muslim men, we love making money. Right?
Yes,
wealth, we love making money. But what about generational health? We think about generational wealth. What about generational health? It could be you or me. It could be like one person that you create this healthy habits, this healthy lifestyle. Then your children follow suit. Yes. Then their children follow suit. And you could be that one person who changes the trajectory of health for generations to come.
Yes,
right?
True.
So there, generational health we're creating. Ultimately, health is real wealth. Another thing we do, we work ourselves to the bone to accumulate. And we were talking about this earlier, that Muslim men have a massive pressure to provide, right? Maybe not in the wider community, women feel like they're partly responsible for the earning, and it's 50-50 and all the rest of it. But we know as Muslim men, it's our responsibility to provide, and we feel a lot of pressure to secure our family's financial future.
Yes.
And sometimes we work ourselves to the bone to do that. But if I end up with a heart attack, or I end up with so a serious, because heart attacks and strokes are similar, right? It's a clogging of the arteries, and then I become paralyzed. My father was paralyzed, by the way, and that was another major factor in me becoming so acutely aware of the health status of our community. My dad suffered a heart attack only when I was 8 years old, and then when I was like 14, he had a stroke, and then for the next 8 years of his life, he was a cabbage. We had to the point where he couldn't. Sometimes he'd soil himself, and we had to clean him, and so I witnessed all that. And he must have been in his 50s, right? When he had a stroke, right? 50s, mid 50s. Again, not an age to be a cabbage.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
50
now.
Is so young.
Again, we Muslim men are fiercely independent. We're providing for our families. Now, the families that depend on us, what if something happens to you or I and we have a stroke? And look, Allah knows what's going to happen in the future, but we have to tie our camel and do our best. If we have a stroke, what happens to all of that money? What happens to our ability to provide?
Exactly.
Again, we have to think about health is wealth.
Health is wealth, absolutely. And as I say, what's the point of being rich if you're in the graveyard 30 years before you should have been in there?
Yeah. And the other thing, I use this term, and I said, what's the point in being the richest man in the graveyard?
Yeah, exactly. You know, you're right. You're right. And it's actually a quote of Ali radiallahu anhu. He says, "How foolish is man? He spends all of his health trying to get wealth, then spends all of his wealth trying to get health." It's right, you know.
And you know, as a doctor, look, you can't really buy health in a bottle.
No, you can't.
You just can't.
It's no magic potion for health. Prevention is better than cure. And take your food as medicine. And absolutely, nutrition is so key. And we overeat. You know, food should be functional. And now, for the first time in human history, we're killing ourselves with food. We're poisoning ourselves with food. For all of human history, up until the last 100 years, up until the last 50 years, rather, 1970s, more people were dying
from lack of food.
From malnutrition than starvation. From malnutrition and overeating. So now we're having diseases of excess. We're having diseases like diabetes, like congestive cardiac failure, liver failure from drinking. We're having obesity causing. Obesity, by the way, causes 20 cancers. It's linked to 20 cancers. Most
of the ailments, most of chronic ailments in the developed world is from overeating.
It's inflammation. So inflammation causes so many things, and we know this as doctors. If you're inflamed, your body goes into overdrive mode. Your organs start failing. Your heart fails. Your brain fails. Have you heard of neuroinflammation? Neuroinflammation is when you can't concentrate. You're unproductive, and people call it ADHD, and people call it all sorts of things. But it's actually you're just eating crappy processed food, which are not meant to efficiently release insulin. They're meant to just spike your insulin, bring it down, spike it, bring it down. This causes the pancreas to fail. That's why you're getting 20-year-old diabetics, type 2 diabetics, because their pancreas it's not, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made our pancreas and our liver and our kidneys, mizan means balance, right? It's not designed for this upward swinging of glucose every 20 minutes from your quality streets and your Mars bars and all this kind of stuff. And then on top of that, your processed foods, and we're just bringing premature failure. So imagine, 100 years ago, let's say your pancreas would have secreted insulin 3 or 4 times a day. You have 3 meals a day, 3 or 4 times a day, So, 80, and you'd be doing that. So, it's got let's say a shelf life of 80 years, pancreas. Because obviously we don't live to 150. The longest human in recent times has been 122, I think. We don't live to 150, okay? But now, that 80 years worth of use is happening in 10 years. So of course you're going to get diabetes and heart failure, liver failure in your 20s.
It's like redlining your car.
Exactly.
You're driving down the motorway, if you're redlining it, you won't get to, from Manchester to London, the engine will go.
Exactly, and it's all about exactly the same concept of mileage. We're putting more mileage on our organs than we are any time. So more people are dying now of overnutrition, of overeating, by the way, and not overnutrition. I must say we are
overfed but undernourished
because we're lacking in vitamin D, we're lacking in vitamin B12. So common, folate, ferritin, iron deficiencies. I see so many people now are pale, so pale because they're vitamin D deficient, they're folate, ferritin deficient. They can't concentrate. Some men can't have erections in their 20s, by the way. Their test levels are crashing low. Why? Because they're vitamin D deficient. You shouldn't be vitamin D deficient. I don't know guys whose hairs are falling out, can't grow beards, their hair's all growing out in their 20s. There's vitamin D, stress as well. Another thing about stress is sleeping. So, we mentioned, I always say the 3 S's, by the way. Sleep, sustenance, and stress. Always, just kind of there's other ones like steak, sex, and some like, but the main 3 of them things, because obviously not everyone's married, so I don't really talk about sex that much, but certainly sustenance, sleep, and stress, everyone does. Whether you're married or married, everyone does them 3. People don't talk about sleep enough. The importance of sleep. Sleep is actually recovery at night time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed sleep there for you as a recovery. As we know this. As guys in the fitness industry, recovery is so important. But people don't sleep; they're sleeping at 4 a.m. Exactly. Allah's put a blanket at the night, and so much recovery and barakah in sleeping early, waking up early. We mentioned in the previous podcast with other guests about waking up for tahajjud and fajr. Start your day with fajr. Wake up, your circadian rhythm, 5 a.m., you know, your cortisol rises at 5 a.m. Get up, start your day that way. We're going to sleep at 5 a.m. So we've inversed our circadian rhythm. We've invested. Sleep is so important. And by the way, you know, you mentioned ghrelin there, yeah? Ghrelin. It's actually a very good study saying your ghrelin levels rise with every 1 hour of undersleeping.
Yes.
You know, so undersleeping causes increase in ghrelin, decrease in leptin.
In fact, I had a client, you know, who he couldn't get to the bottom of why he was struggling with his weight. He was in the gym, he was supposedly eating healthy, but then he said to me, look, you know what, I can't resist sugary foods. Like, I really struggle to resist sugary foods. And first thing in the morning, he'd go to dessert places and get pancakes and stuff. And then he'd wake up in the morning, he'd have chocolate next to his bed. I mean, one is the environment. Like, if you got all that in front of you, you're tempted to eat it, right? Yes. And secondly, I said to him, what's your sleep like? Because I got the impression that we log everything, by the way. We log sleep, hydration, everything, right? So I could see that, you know, his sleep was pretty off. So I said, he goes, no, you know, I don't sleep well. I said, well, there you go. That's the problem. When you wake up, your body is craving sugar. It's craving energy, and you know, our bodies, our biology is clever enough to know that high fat, high sugar foods contain a lot of energy.
Yes.
So
exactly.
Your body's craving that, and if you're fighting with your biology, you're gonna lose, right? So I said that's why you're craving all the sugar and all that stuff. And lo and behold, he started to sleep out. His cravings went away.
Yeah, they do. Like, I've had it before where I've had 4 hours sleep.
Yeah.
And I wake up starving.
Stimulus. All day you just want stimulus, sugar, fat, and caffeine.
Fat, exactly. Salty and sugary foods, by the way, which have the highest amount of calories in there. Because, like, again, your body's smart. Your body's like, this guy has been up all night. He's probably looking out for some danger. Little does your body know you've been up all night because you're watching Netflix. Little does your body know you've been up all night because you're scrolling through YouTube.
Yeah. And your appetite, your ghrelin, your leptin levels drop, and your ghrelin increases. Your appetite increases, and your desire for salt and sugary foods increases as well. And you're looking for comfort because you feel tired.
Exactly.
So
I remember night shifts, Adam. Yeah, when I couldn't understand it. Like, I was all into fitness. I've been working out since I was 16. When I got to after uni, when I was a first year doctor, exactly 11 years ago, 2012 in Sheffield, 3 a.m. And like, I've just had a big meal at 8 p.m, right? Just before I used to do a night shift, so I'd have a big meal at 8 p.m. because I knew I wouldn't eat. Then at 3 a.m, sorry, I'd have a massive hunger spike, and it always at 3 a.m. Always, and it's always, I'll crave pizza for some reason. It wasn't, it wasn't anything healthy, but I crave, pizza and some Coke and some cookie dough especially. I crave it, and we just ordered it from McDonald's or whatever, whichever local takeaway was open, 3 a.m. We'd order it, because it's your body saying he's not sleeping, therefore he must be under some attack. Therefore, something hunting him or something bothering him, give him some calories to overcome the attack. And I was doing that obviously voluntarily because I was doing night shifts. But people that are doing it not voluntarily, they're doing it, and they shouldn't be doing it. They should be sleeping at 9, 10, before midnight anyway, or waking up early. But if you're constantly sleeping at 3 and waking up at 6, 3-4 hours sleep, you're going to wake up hungry, and it's going to be a vicious cycle. You can't outrun a bad diet.
Yeah, you can't.
And one of your things I like, and your thing is getting people to lose weight without giving up curries, because nutrition is the hardest thing to give up, by the way. But if you can tell them they can still eat curries but on a healthier way, you instill in them routines and behaviors.
Yeah. And your belief as well. The belief, the biggest thing is like, I can do this.
Yes.
But we were touching on, a couple of things we'll come back to. Inflammation, I want to mention that. And then this terms of like, so when people are listening, they might be thinking, okay, well, life's hard. We acknowledge that life is hard. We've got so much going on this day and age. You're working long hours, all the rest of it. So, and we need to provide for our family and stuff. So how do you balance fitness, health, and all that stuff? So I'd like to try and provide 2 solutions. One, when I was a school teacher for most of my life, a secondary school teacher, loads of paperwork, homework, marking, all the rest of it. I actually found it, believe this or not, because I was going to the gym yesterday, I thought, you know what, it was so much easier to stay fit when I was working 60 hours a week as a teacher. Because it sounds strange, this, what are you talking about? And now, because now I have my own routine, my own timetable. I can, I can decide to work, I don't have to work if I don't want to, I can go to gym whenever I want. and I find it 10 times harder because I'm running my own business. There's always something to do. There's always more to do, right? And it's like, okay, I'll just get this done. Right? I've got my time blocked out. Yes, I'm going to go to the gym at this time, but I haven't. Oh man, I've got my to-do list. There's still 3 things left. Or I've not even finished the first thing, and then I'll just finish this now. Go, and then before you know it, oh man, it's late. I've missed it. And I struggle. I find it so much more harder now to get to the gym than when I was a school teacher. When I was a school teacher, I knew I had my fixed routine. That these were my pockets. So I used to train Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then sometimes during the block, some blocks you are more volume. You train 5 days a week. Some blocks you training 4 days a week. But the majority, 70% of my training would have been about 3 days a week. So I know Mondays is my only day. I come from, finish work, come home, go to the gym, Wednesday, Friday. And in the mornings, I knew I had to be up at this time. I still get up early, but it's like I had to be at this time. I need to get out of the house at this time. So I'd come, get up, I'd put my veg on boil, veg will be doing, have a shower, brush my teeth, veg is done, put my thingy into the container. And again, at school, I never used to snack. I don't snack now. I never snack then either. But I only had my fixed lunch with me. I couldn't eat anything extra. I couldn't, like I work from home now. I can go downstairs and eat some more.
Of course you can, yeah.
Right? So if I'm not, so I had my fixed lunch, and even if I was hungry, and even if I wanted to eat more, there's nothing more to eat.
Nothing more to eat.
Right? But my routine was so fixed.
It's easier when it's fixed.
So much easier. It was so much easier to stay in shape as opposed to now. So if you're working 60, 70 hours, you just need to create some routines around your existing routines. You just plug. And again, you had the previous guest, we talked about habits. To create habits, the best way to create a habit is to use another habit as a trigger.
Yes.
Or your existing routine as a trigger. If this, then that.
Yes, exactly. It's like, one of the big, because he talks about triggers a lot. And so a simple thing is, some people say, sleep in your gym clothes. So when you wake up in the morning, you're in the gym clothes already. Or put your gym bag right next to the door. And veg is a great one. So that's what I do. I do meal prep. When I'm working away for 3-4 days, and again, I do 12-hour shifts. I know I'm going to eat one meal a day when I'm there, because I'll eat when I'm back home, but I'll just eat one lunch there. I don't have breakfast. I believe in intermittent fasting, so I'll have one meal at work. Only thing, I've got fish and veg and chicken with me. I'm not going to get anything else from there. So I'll make sure I prepare it the night before. For 3 or 4 days actually. I'll make a big container, 3-litre container, take it with me. But pre-prepping the meals. Meal prepping is so important, because otherwise you end up, not only just spending a lot of money, but you just end up swiping with your contactless card, getting things which aren't nourishing.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my clients actually, and this again, I show this to, because when people want to invest into coaching services, they're like, oh, it's going to cost me money, but they don't think about how much they're going to save.
Yes.
So one of my clients actually showed me that he saved like over £2,000 over 9 months. A smash burger meal is about £15 for one person. If you're a family of 3 or 4, you're spending £45 to £60 just on eating out. Sometimes people eat 2 or 3 times a week. So they're spending £150 to £200 a week just on eating out. This client of mine, he estimated that he saved over £2,000 in the space of 9 months because he was constantly eating out, and now he doesn't. This counters the argument that eating healthy is more expensive.
Exactly,
Right? Actually, eating healthy, eating home-cooked, nutritious food is cheaper than eating out. Right?
Because so the question I have for you, because people say, yeah, it's cheaper. I agree. It takes a bit of time, which is fine. We can talk about that. But then people say it's not as nice, Adam. It's not as nice. How do you combat that?
You just need to learn to cook. No, you can make food super nice. Okay, look, it's never going to be as tasty as the high calorific high. Again, look, people say that. But I've looked at some people's foods. So what happens when the clients join our program? Sometimes I tell them not to make any changes for the first week. I look at what they're already eating. And sometimes I think, dude, you're getting fat eating this. Like, this looks disgusting. This looks awful. It looks like it's got no spices, no flavor, nothing, right? And you're gaining weight eating this.
Like basically prison food.
Yeah, this is before they're eating nutritiously. Like, this is they're existing the way they're eating, right? I thought, no, this isn't thinking. And but you can make food super tasty and healthy, but nevertheless, it's not really a good idea to make food You shouldn't have it so bland and boring like bodybuilders bro food. If food is too boring and bland, you're not going to stick to it.
Yes.
If it's too hyper palatable, even if it's healthy, you're going to overeat.
Yes.
People eat up to 30% more when the food is hyper palatable. So what you want to do is you want to find a balance between, I quite enjoy this food, I enjoy it, I can eat it, but it's not like a treat food. The hyper palatable stuff, you see it and you compartmentalize it as treat food.
Right, okay,
I'm going to have it once in a while, once a week, I go out with my friends or my family, or even twice a week. Like, I was doing intermittent fasting religiously for 6 years, right? And for 8 weeks, this is shocking, this, and people, you're going to listen to this. Again, from this you'll understand that it's all about calories, right? Because I was doing intermittent fasting, I was eating 2 meals a day, or 1.5 meals a day, I have to call it, right? Because one was a biggish meal, one was a big meal. And I ate takeaways every single night.
Oh, and you still lost weight, right?
Yeah.
I
had fried chicken, everything, right? Every single night for 8 weeks. And I got down to a 6-pack, right? And but I stopped because I thought, you know what, this is not good for me. Like, it's going to clog up my arteries and everything. And my kids were eating it. So then I stopped. But it completely ingrained in me that, like, it's all about how much you eat.
Yeah, input output, isn't it? Input and output. And like, I'll give you an example, like olive oil. Yeah, it's good for you. But honestly, when you put too much on, it's calories still.
Yeah,
so it's calories, and it's I love olive oil. It's great for the skin. It's great for for your mood. It's fantastic. Great for the arteries as well. Cleans them up. But it's, again, too much of a good thing can be bad for you. And you mentioned cooking curries. Tell me about the spray technique for cooking curries.
Yeah, so I'm, again, like you're talking about olive oil. Olive oil is fantastic. One of the things I say, if you want to really try and reduce calories quickly, one of the easiest ways to do that is to remove liquid fats, right? So, but then a lot of times we need oil to cook, right? Yeah. So you can use the 1 cal sprays, right? So here's a real quick hack, right? So eggs are fantastic. Eggs are fantastic for protein, for healthy fats. Again, don't take the yolk out of it. And if you're worried about cholesterol, there's good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. Egg cholesterol, it's majority of it's good cholesterol. Yeah, exactly. And men need cholesterol to
build testosterone.
To build testosterone. Yeah. So it's only if you're having 50 eggs a day it's going to cause a problem. But up to 4 or 5 eggs a day is actually the right amount. Even 4 eggs a day with the yolk. Now, but if you're really trying to reduce the calories, you might want to take 1 or 2 yolks out and have the other 2. Instead of having 5 yolks, have 3 yolks or 2 yolks. So I generally encourage a good breakfast with omelette, veg and eggs, right? Or omelette or scramble. If you want to make the omelette and you want to flip it and you want to have it nicely shaped, you need a bit of oil, right? So a teaspoon of oil or something like that. But if you wanted to go even, if you were really struggling with creating a calorie deficit, and or you wanted to save your calories for something else bigger later on, then use a 1 cal spray. Now if you use a 1 cal spray, you don't get this perfect omelette, right? It starts breaking up. So in that case, just have a scrambled egg. Scrambled egg with veg, or throw the veg in, scramble it with the veg, or scrambled egg. Perfect breakfast. Carbs, I don't believe that carbs are bad, and carbs are good for training, but you don't need carbs unless you're actually exercising.
Yes.
So it's ideal to minimize your carb intake when you're not exercising, and have your carbs around your training time.
Of course.
Before you train, after you train, and this was a controversial one. Some people will say that no, you shouldn't be having carbs at night. I'm actually a fan of having carbs at night. Simple carbs.
Sleep better, don't you?
Sleep better. 100% sleep better. Because carbs make you drowsy.
Of course.
Right? And having refined carbs at night, you feel drowsy, right? Just the right time
to best sleep. You know my boys love pizza. So if I want to put them to sleep, I get them pizza, by the way. I honestly, I get them Domino's and it's half an hour to sleep. It's the best sleeping pill.
So I find carbs at night, it helps to get drowsy, so I fall asleep. Secondly, they're restorative. So your body needs the glucose
glycogen and all that.
Glycogen for your brain and stuff. And if you've been training during the day, repairing of muscles and stuff, so it helps you to heal better at night. So I recommend carbs at 3 times. Hour or 2 before you train. Again, if you have another meal earlier on, or 2 or 3 hours before you train, you find that your energy through training is very consistent.
Much better,
And
you
then
don't crash quickly, do you?
Yeah, and post-workout, where your muscles are depleted of glycogen and stuff like that, you have some carbs. They're the best times. But if you're not going to be training straight after breakfast, there's no point having those carbs then.
Yeah, scrambled egg and veg is fine.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a big fan of intermittent fasting. But I found a lot of my clients, when they were intermittent fasting, they were overcompensating by having
later
a
on.
massive meal. And I'm like, no, just don't do that. Just have a small breakfast.
That's what I do with the clients.
Yeah.
So a lot of the clients, again, people listening, you have to understand the rules.
Yeah.
And then understand how to apply them to your circumstances.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
You see me do things and you think, how is this guy doing this? And he's thinking, and that's another thing is you have to know the rules before you can break them.
You have to know them before you break them and apply them to yourself. And they say, do as I say, not as I do. Because the way you do it on yourself is intuitive. And I'm a big believer in intuitive eating. I never tell people how I eat because it doesn't work for them. It's worked for me. It's taken me 15 years to perfect this for myself. But for you, you're going to have tweaks to what I do. So don't follow my blueprint. The blueprint only works for me. It's like the fingerprint. It's only unique to me. How I eat, how I sleep. Follow the generic principles. But the biggest principle I can tell anyone out there is calories in versus calories out. Like literally, you can't outrun a bad diet.
No, you can't.
You don't want to be the French guy. The French fat hench guy. You don't want to be that guy. He's going to have a heart attack as well. And you don't want to be the skinny fat guy either. You want to be, have a good body fat percentage, have a decent amount of muscle mass. You don't have to be a bodybuilder, but you've got to have a decent amount of muscle mass because we know this affects your longevity. More muscle is greater longevity provided it's naturally made, not in anabolic steroids. Secondly, particularly for women, muscle helps hip fractures later on in life.
Why is it that we're overweight, right? And one of the biggest things that I've noticed in our community is like we have this culture where being overweight is celebrated. Secondly, most men I come across, alhamdulillah, now I'm starting to get some clients who have 6 kg to lose, 9, 10 kg to lose, they're 78 kg, the 80 kg,
it's not much,
82.
It's about a stone and a half.
But they're thinking, I want to be better.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to actually look good. I've seen the shift in the last 3 or 4 months, but prior to that, and we still get some people, they are 3 or 4 stones over what they should be. But they don't think there's anything wrong with them.
No self-awareness.
There's no self-awareness, and they really think that, I just got 5 kg to lose. And then the other argument that they'll have is about BMI, and I wrote a blog post on this. Yes, BMI doesn't take muscle mass into consideration, but if you've never trained a day in your life, you don't really have that much muscle mass.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Right, you're a rugby player.
Yeah.
So forget. Yeah, exactly. So if your BMI saying you're high, you're fat.
Yeah. And thinking again, naturally, my BMI, I'm 25.9.
So you're overweight.
I'm overweight, but I've got 20 years of muscle.
Yeah, exactly. Right?
And so most people, BMI is pretty accurate.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
you should, if you've never trained, or even if you have trained, even as a natural, even if you've been training for a few years, if you go over in your BMI, you won't be that much over. You'll be a little bit over, but
1
then
or 2 over, maximum.
But then you're probably still holding a bit too much fat. If you got to 10% or 12%, your BMI will be so close to that 25 range, right? And this guy's thinking that, but I'm 32, but it's just all muscle.
No, exactly. Because that's the pandemic we're getting as well. I call it the fat hench, the French pandemic, right? You've got guys who are just training for size. They're not training for longevity. And we should be training for longevity, by the way. You want to live longer, of course. The longer you live, the more good deeds you can do, hopefully, inshallah. The more sadaqah you can leave behind you, the more charity you can give while you're here, the more impact you can have. We talked about legacy earlier offline, leaving a legacy 20, 30 years. So you want to live longevity, you want to live a long, happy, healthy life. So these guys are dropping dead with heart attacks and all sorts of aneurysms because they're eating the 10 eggs a day.
Are people just not self-aware? They're just not self-aware how big they are. Like, this is going to sound horrible. Look, here's the thing, listeners. Right? When I was fat, I guess I wasn't that self-aware in terms of you only measure others against yourself, right? So when I was fat, I'd only look at guys that are like morbidly obese. Okay, he's fat, I'm all right. So I have 2 programs. I have a fat loss program and a muscle building program. But what we do, our first program is really easy. We call it the minimalist method because it is so minimalist, right? And people just lose weight, but we don't focus on getting an amazing physique. But then I do encourage them. I said, look, I do want you once in your life to get proper abs and look in good shape. Right? You don't have to be Mr. Olympia, but I want you to look in good shape, like a swimmer. Like a swimmer might look, some decent shape, decent, healthy, decent athletic shape, just once in your life. You know why? Because then you'll set a bar for yourself. That's when you'll notice that everybody around you is overweight. That's when you notice that, damn, actually, And you look at your former self and think, man, I was disappointing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And you look at, and then you notice that. Same happened to me.
Yeah.
When I was fat, I just thought, yeah, everyone's, you know. When I actually got lean, proper lean, where you can see my abs and I've got striations in my muscles, then now I'm not satisfied with anything
But
too
that.
far.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, anything but that. But I'll only allow myself to stray a little bit.
Yeah, you've got like a 2 to 4%. That's what I say.
Yeah.
I've got a 2 to 4%. So I got down to like 6.8% body fat, and I'll never allow myself to go into double figures.
Yeah,
Since
never.
then, you know, like.
I mean, I allow myself. I mean, for me, ideally, I want to stay within the 12 to 15%.
Yeah, it's a good healthy range.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because I'm slightly younger than you, so you know, I suppose once you get to kind of mid 40s or in your 40s as well, your test levels do plateau. You know, certainly do plateau, and that's another thing I wanted to talk to you about as well. Testosterone crisis in men. I know you're natural, etc. There's a lot of people now taking TRT. Yeah, you can take it in your 40s. It's fine. It's like menopause, right? You can take HRT. Or you can take TRT because andropause, by the way, it's a medical condition. People don't talk about it. It's a medical. You get to 40s. Your facial hair, you get a bit less, your voice gets less deep, your libido goes down, you get less, your erections get softer, you become less aggressive. It's called andropause, but probably no one's even heard of it. But it's actually a medical condition, just like menopause. Everyone's heard of the menopause. It's because it's just men's health is not as widely available. But you're getting people now in their 20s, honestly, in my own family, messaging me, they're like 21 at university, I want to take a TRT. But they're not trying the main things. It's essentially, like Yusuf from Propane Fitness says, fill the holes in the bucket.
Yeah.
Before you pour other things into the bucket, like close the holes. The holes are leaking out. Bad diet, bad sleep, alcohol, vaping, smoking, sugar, Netflix at 3 a.m. All these things are the bucket. The bucket is leaking out. But you can't put other things in the bucket like TRT and anabolics. When your bucket is leaking.
Absolutely.
Close the bucket first.
Absolutely.
So have you had clients in their 20s asking for TRT?
No. I mean, my clients are not that sophisticated. They're not into the whole fitness scene.
Okay.
They're into the burger scene.
Yeah. Or that. A lot of them are like corporate people, aren't they? Like just like.
So I mean, just getting them aware of basic stuff about health. I mean, somebody actually messaged me the other day something about testosterone. He said, "Oh, I heard that testosterone is really good for you." I thought that was common knowledge, that men are supposed to have high testosterone and the testosterone leads to better mood and all these positive health outcomes. I said, yeah, it's like, isn't that common knowledge?
Yeah, but because it's been vilified so much. And like I say to people on my podcast often is, testosterone is neither good nor bad. It's just a hormone, right? It's nothing. It's not intrinsically good. Low levels are good. Very high levels are bad. Sorry, low levels are bad and very high levels are bad as well. So you need a healthy amount.
Yeah.
You don't want to get to the level where you're roid rage and you completely just high blood pressure. From taking TRT. You don't want to have low levels as well, because that causes low libido, low mood. We say happy, horny, hungry. Men who have low levels are neither. They're very kind of have low mood, etc.
Yeah.
So you need a good healthy amount. A good range. More than 50. Preferably 100, 200, 400, even. You don't want it in the thousands, you don't want it 800 or above. You want a good, decent amount. And, compound exercises, fasting, steak, good sleep, stress control, these are all important to that. But yeah, people are taking exogenous test level, TRT, and they're just having incredibly high levels. That's causing them roid rage, and then when you come off it, you crash. For 3 to 6 months, you're going to be in such a low mood.
And that's, I actually listened to something under here, and it's because, look, the best business model is a subscription model.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So if you get somebody who's got diabetes and then you tell them that you can never reverse it, you can never come off it, you're going to need insulin for the rest of your life. You just made the doctor rich.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And I mean, it's a bit different in the UK, but in America, where they have to pay for their medication, if I wanted my perfect business model, I just need 50 people who are diabetic who pay me for insulin. I'm done. Right?
Yeah, exactly. It's
similarly with TRT, once you're on it, you can't come off it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And so then it's a repeat business
subscription model. Yeah, exactly. But I think testosterone is vilified a lot, but it's also at the same time, a lot of people don't know about it, but it's in decline. We know that, and that's a lot of that is
to the point, like 50% or something compared to
exactly
50
years ago.
Yeah.
So back in the 80s, so 40 years ago now, testosterone levels were at least 25% higher in our age group. So we've got the same test levels as a guy in his 50s. So if you're 25, you've got the same test levels as your grandfather would have had. So it's declining massively. People have got various theories about that. Water, deodorants, soaps, clothing.
Magnesium,
exactly.
zinc,
Magnesium deficiency, zinc deficiency, and
Yeah.
all these things. But the main thing is, look at your habits. If you're,
Sleep's a big one, isn't it?
Sleep's a huge one. Because sleep, again, ghrelin, leptin, melatonin, all these are linked to sleep.
It's just crazy how it's all linked. Coming back to inflammation, high fat percentage means low testosterone.
Yes.
High fat percentage
High inflammation
also means chronic inflammation.
Yes.
And again, I've got a wealth of videos, I've already made. People just need to watch them. I think, and it's it's sad that there's so much out there that I put out there and not enough people have consumed them. Right?
After this, they will, yeah. So Adam Khan, Fit Dad Life Mastery, Actualized Muslim. Inshallah, I'll put the links to all in the YouTube
so
video.
I did one on inflammation actually, because again, it's thrown around a lot, right? And people don't get it, and everyone just blames carbohydrates and sugar, but there's more to it, right? So chronic so when you have a certain level of body fat percentage that's high, you're in a chronically inflamed state.
Yes.
Acute inflammation is not a problem. We all have
infection and these things, and
because once you eat, there's acute inflammation.
Yeah, exactly.
Because your body has to, let that food into your bloodstream and stuff, and with that, you get some bacteria going in, and your body thinks, okay, it's under attack, so it's inflammation. Post-training, there's inflammation, right? So your body heals and repairs. There's inflammation. So acute inflammation is not a problem. It's a natural response. Chronic inflammation is the problem.
Yes.
That leads to all sorts of nasties. Like I said, it's an array of diseases that can be linked to chronic inflammation. Now, chronic inflammation comes from high body fat percentage, but it also comes from, and this is where I think this is where the confusion lies with sugar and carbs. People think it's carbs that leads to inflammation. It comes from constantly eating.
Yes,
because every time you eat, and Dr. I don't know if you know Dr. Jenna, I think her surname is pronounced Machichochi or something, or Makiochi. She wrote
Japanese.
the book. No, she wrote she's not Japanese. She wrote the book called Immunity. She's a British UK medical doctor.
Right, okay.
Good book, Immunity, worth reading, peeps. So she wrote a blog post, and she cited some studies, and she said, look, every time we eat, it's snacking kills, right? Literally kills.
Yes.
Right? So she said every time you eat, your body has to digest that food, and it has to let them nutrients into the bloodstream. But every time, so your epithelial cells have to open up, your stomach lining opens up to let the nutrients into the bloodstream. But with that, some of the bacteria from your gut enters into your bloodstream. So that's when your body thinks it's under attack, and you become acutely inflamed. But if you're repeating this every hour,
exactly,
right, then that's leading to a state of chronic inflammation.
Yes,
So and then you become obese as well, and that's leading to chronic inflammation.
Exactly.
So there's this barrage of inflammation from every angle, right? And then you wonder why. Oh, why am I ill? Why have I got this rash? Why have I got this?
Brain fog as well, and all these things. And like they say, that's why fasting is a great way to reset. I always say to a lot of my clients, to metabolically reset yourself, fasting is good. In 18-hour fast, do a detox for 3 days, just water and black coffee, black tea, mint tea, herbal tea, green tea, that kind of thing, where you have no calories. Give your gut a rest, do a big detox essentially. You'll see the arsenic levels in your bloodstream decrease, so many things, uric acid decrease, you're going to weigh it all out. No food for 3 days. If you can't do that, do it for 1 day. If you can't do that, do it for half a day, 12 hours. People eat on waking, and people eat as soon as they go, before they go to sleep. So you've got like an 18-hour eating window. 18-hour eating window. Have you heard of the warrior diet? Yeah. Where you just have 2-hour eating window,
Yeah, Ori, what's his name? Ori.
I'm not sure, I don't know his name, but
he's the first one that popularized intermittent fasting.
Exactly, intermittent fasting. And Michael Mosley as well, he's a doctor, talks about the fast diet. But essentially what's happening is, what I mentioned earlier, the amount of insulin we're pumping in 20, that's why you're getting diabetes at 20, 30. Before you get it in your 80s. Type 1 you can get as a young child, right? Type 2 you're getting in your 20s and 30s. Type 2 you're getting 20s and 30s because pump failure. Your pump is failing. Yeah. Because it's been secreting so many times over.
And not only that as well, it's the amount that is, if you're having chocolates, and sugars, and biscuits, and donuts.
Exactly.
Right? It's if you've got so much sugar in your bloodstream, and it all needs clearing out. So you need to pump massive dosages.
Exactly, and you're going to get pump failure. Adam, it's been a great chat. I think, inflammation is one of our favorite topics. We should have another topic in this, because it's a great book called Brain Energy by Dr. Chris Palmer. I do recommend that for all the listeners. Brain Energy.
A quick point before we just got a couple of minutes. Yeah. So we spoke about how do you fit it all in. I don't think I managed to get to it. So here's a mental way of balancing health and fitness and everything else. You look at your life as having 5 dials. Rather than we think of them as on-off switches. So I talk about this a lot, about how to become an actualized Muslim man, where you fitness. So to be an actualized Muslim man, I believe you have to have faith. You have to be a decent Muslim. You don't have to be the sheikh, grand sheikh, but you have to pray your 5 salat, understand the Quran. I'm big on understanding the Quran. Be a relatively upright Muslim, right? Secondly, you have to focus on your family. Your family is important. Your fitness. You have to focus on your fitness, focus on your finances, your career, your work. You have to provide, and you see that they're all interlinked. And finally, you have to make time for yourself. You have to make time for your growth, your well-being, all the rest of it. So I call that fun.
I love that. 5 Fs.
The 5 Fs, right? Now you have to think of them as dials rather than on-off switches, because at all times in your life, you have to give some attention to all of those areas. If you completely switch one off, there's going to be negative consequences that's going to affect everything else. So if you think, right, I'm not going to think about my diet or think about my health or exercise at all, it's going to impact your ability to work, it's going to impact your family, it's going to impact everything else. And if you think I'm not going to make any time for my family, again, it's going to impact everything else. So if Salah, we can't stop praying Salah, right? So you have to always be making time for some time for all of these things.
Yes.
Now, how much time you make for each of them will depend on where you are in your life, your stage in your life. If you're a young man and you're just married and you've got young kids, like 3, 4, 5 years old, then your dial for family might be turned up, and your fitness dial might be turned down.
But it's never going to be off.
It's never going to be off. Right? Your work dial, when you're young as well, you're fresh, you're strong, you want to establish your empire, you might be spending a lot of time at work, right? So think of them as dials rather than on and off switches, and just know which dials to turn down, which dials to turn up, but never switch any of them.
Never switch. And exactly what we mentioned earlier, never be a 9 out of 10 in one thing and a 1 or 0 out in another. It's better to be 6 and 7 across the board.
Yeah.
There will be times where you're a 9 and you're a 4 and 5, but never get to 0 and 1. Because then you're running on empty.
Yeah.
And the 5 Fs, so repeat that: faith,
family, fitness, finances, fun.
I love that, 5 Fs.
Yeah. And again, get in touch with, if it's hard, we want to create a brotherhood. We want to create a brotherhood, right? We want to create this community of like-minded individuals who have similar goals, aspirations, ambitions. Lean on each other for support.
Yeah, exactly.
Find those pockets of people and lean on them for support. You're not alone.
100%, and we go further when we go together. And honestly, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And synergy is so important. And Islam is a communal religion. It's a religion of brotherhood. It's not a religion of lone wolves. We're not a monastic religion where we go to the mountains, die there. We're a religion of communal bonding. We pray Salah together. We eat together. We go on Hajj, Umrah together. Islam is a communal religion of social bonding, social enterprise. So definitely reach out to each other, particularly in the fitness field.
And look, we all have the same struggles and challenges. Yeah. Right? We all have the same. It's finding the people with the right mindset, similar to yours, and getting support. Somebody's going to be an expert in one area that you're not, and somebody else and you're going to be an expert in an area that somebody else is not, and you can lean off each other.
Exactly. So synergy is hugely important. And speaking of synergy, Adam, it'd be good to connect with you. Put your links on the bottom of YouTube. How can people find you?
Best place is either LinkedIn. Well, if you just type my name in, Adam Khan, K-A-A-N, on Google, I should come up. If I don't, then I'll do something. But I'm very active on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Great stuff. Adam Khan, the German spelling. You won't miss it. So much. Pleasure seeing you. Thank you.